up? What's up? What's happening, people? This is the live one, not a replay. I know last week we had a replay, the week before that we had a replay. And anytime I'm not having a guest, you're going to see a replay, right? Because we have over 60 shows that we've been doing. We started this last year in March, and look, we're now in eight. Nope, we're in May. We're in May. That's right. We're in May. That's how long we've been doing this, y'all. And I want to say congratulations to all you that are doing whatever it is that you have a passion to do because life is moving at a really, really cool pace, right? But if you're not paying attention to that thing that's on the inside of you, what else can happen? You can lose the opportunity to share your passion, and then maybe you might not ever, ever, ever hit your purpose. Who am I? I'm Dwayne-Ross, your dream coach, that person who is the author of the book, No More Crumbs from the Table, where you celebrate discovering your tag, your talent, your ability, your gift, and putting it to work in the earth. And I want to say thank you for everyone that's watching this, no matter whether you're watching live on Facebook or maybe you're watching it on YouTube. But I got a really, really cool show for you today. I hope you're ready to put your seatbelt on and buckle up because I'm going to share some information with my guest. Her name is Dr. Nicole S. Mason. Dr. Nicole S. Mason, Esquire. Yes, she is a lawyer, and she's going to talk about some things around that estate planning. That's right. She's an estate planning lawyer, y'all. That's protecting your legacy. Some of us work so hard, and then we get to that place where, I don't know, we pass away and people are having chicken dinners. People are losing their entire properties. All kind of stuff is happening. I posted about Aretha Franklin, right? She died, but all of her legacy had to go to court because she didn't have the planning in place. So we're going to talk about these things. And then I got some special stuff to share with you when it comes to what Dr. Mason does in her space of passion and purpose. So anyway, hey, let's get started. Let me go into my 30 seconds and then we're going to bring her on in and let's make this happen. Hey lady, what is going on? How are you? What is going on? How are you? Hey.
Let me tell you, I am doing phenomenal. I love your energy. I'm like, this is going to be a phenomenal show. I don't know if they can take your energy times my energy because it is going to be explosive, combustible. So I'm so excited to be with you this evening to talk with your listeners on your platform. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity to do so.
Well, listen. It was your energy that drew me to say, "Hey, I need you to come on the show." Right? Vanessa had put something out there, and this happened, and that happened, and then we talked on the phone, and then the next thing I know, you're on the show. Right? Right? We're doing this because your energy matched my energy, the universe and God and
Yeah.
everything that brings us together happened. And now look, you're on the other side. And I got to tell you, people are waiting to hear what you have to say. I'm waiting to hear what
Amen.
you have to say. And of course, I'm going to ask you a few cool questions, but
Mhm.
let's hear who you are first and how you even got involved in this area of law that you do. So talk to the listeners and let's hear what you have to say about that.
Well,
Who are you?
right. First, listen, Coach Dwayne, I always say when people ask me, well, who is Dr. Nicole Mason? I always say right off the break, that's a loaded question. So I am a wife, I'm a mother, and I'm an attorney and an author, a preacher. I love to preach. I was born to preach. And one of the things that is so very important to me for people to understand is I wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was 9 years old. Okay, I loved Perry Mason. When my friends were going outside, I was inside watching Perry Mason, and I was so intrigued by the end of the show, and he would have those witnesses on the witness stand, and he would start asking those questions in rapid succession. and people would just throw their hands up and say, "I'm guilty. I did it. I did it. I did it."
It was
It
me.
was it was something about that that resonated so deeply within me. But what I've come to know about myself is that I am an advocate at my core.
Mm,
I speak up for people who either wouldn't or couldn't speak up for themselves all the way throughout my life. So, of course, that got me into a lot of fights because I was getting into matters that really didn't have anything to do with me, or they did, right? At least I felt they did. And so I am an advocate. And so I also work around equal employment opportunity, diversity, and inclusion, in
hmm.
addition to my estate planning work. And so
That's very
I always
powerful.
say that the estate planning area found me. That's the way that I describe it. My mom and my grandmother passed away in the same month, 17 days apart, and of course, not an easy time for me at all. But prior to that happening, I had been serving the elders at my home church, helping them to get their affairs in order. And so when my mom and my grandmother passed away, I was ready, and I knew that I needed to help more people to have their things in order. And the reason that I felt that way was because the grief was already hard enough. And so I was thinking about people who didn't have their paperwork in place, people who didn't know where things were, people who did not have insurance, and I felt like that was a pull from God to say, I already had the law degree, I already had my license to practice law.
Hmm.
And so I just felt like I needed to do this to help more people, particularly people of color, people in my community, so that we would not have to continue to pass the hat and, do GoFundMe and all of these different things when all you have to do is plan in advance to have everything in order.
Well, that's pretty powerful. And, as always, I like to slow down sometime when you hit on what's called, I call the platinum nugget, right? And I've actually seen a situation in my own family where my grandfather was also, he had some property in Philadelphia, as I understand, and my uncles were supposed to take care of it when he passed, and they didn't take care of the paperwork. They didn't put things in order, and then what's really sad is that it went to probate, and then it went to the state. And so no one was able to go in there and understand how to communicate the right way and protect that for our legacy. So we wind up never having it, right? So talk to us about, this is awesome. I like the fact that your last name is Mason. That at 9 years old you were watching Perry Mason, and I
Right.
remember that because I used to watch Perry Mason too. Because I'm one of those. I love those old movies, the black and whites, and unfortunately, I don't see a lot of black men in that movies. But I always liked the way in which they communicated the things and things like that. But Perry Mason was one of my favorite as well, and even later on Ironside, right? So talk to us about that journey and how you discovered this passion as a 9 year old, but then you had to keep it so that you could execute it once you graduated high school. Talk to us about this, Heidi.
Well, first, let me say this. Let me go back to the scenario that you raised as it related to your grandfather. This is why it's important for us to have this conversation, and I really appreciate your sensitivity to it. It was your grandfather who needed to make sure that everything was in place. And this is why we all need to be sure that we have a plan, because when we don't, we leave our families uncovered, unprotected, and the state will take that property, and as I would like to say, they willingly accept it. And so I just wanted to put a plug there, and we'll come back around to that. But as it relates to my purpose and me keeping that in my heart, it was just something that I knew I was supposed to do. And the older I got, I realized that it was really ingrained in me that being an advocate for other people was just who God called me and created me to be. Now, I didn't have those words while I was growing up, that it was God and it was a calling. It was just something that I felt very deeply about. And no one would, stop me from going after my dream. Listen, when I applied to law school, I applied 9 times and I was rejected 9 times.
Mm.
Let that go with the room of your listeners.
No, that's one of them platinum nuggets. I got to slow you down on that. 9 times she said that she applied, and not 8 times
Mm-hmm,
rejected and got in on the ninth time, but 9 times rejected. And I can tell you that
mm-hmm,
there's been plenty of times that people I've run into or what have you, by the fifth or sixth time, they're doing something totally different, right? So that
yeah.
in itself is pretty powerful that you were
Mm-hmm.
rejected 9 times. So take us through how you overcame that objection and still kept moving forward because you had this dream and this ambition connected
Right.
to this purpose.
I chuckle because I remember speaking at a women in business conference, and the host asked me, I was on a panel, and she asked me if I had ever, gotten tired of the rejection. And, I started laughing and I still chuckle about it because something in me just would not take no for an answer. I, I didn't care how many times I had to apply. I knew I was supposed to be a lawyer, and I knew God called me to be a lawyer because by that time I gotten saved along the way, and I just would not take no for an answer. That's just how I felt about it. And I want to say to those who are listening, when you have purpose wrapped up in your heart, it's there for a reason. I can't tell you the number of women that I have been privileged and honored to serve as coach, mentor, big sister, whatever, who, said they wanted to do something along the way. And as you just said, Coach Dwayne, that, something happened, deterred them, and they started doing something else. But I'm always the one pushing and prodding people to go back to what you were originally excited about, what you were originally so passionate about, because it's the passion that's going to keep you focused. It's the passion that is really going to cause you not to throw in the towel, even when you want to. And so you find a lot of people who are working and doing things that they're not passionate about, just to make ends meet, but that really is not the way that we should be living. We should be living from a place of purpose and a place of passion, and then the profits will come after that. And I know that to be so. And I want to encourage those of you who are listening that this has been a great time. I know it's been a difficult time and it's been a hard time, and all of us have been impacted greatly by COVID. But the quarantine and the non-movement has really been an opportunity for all of us to really think about what it is that we're doing in the earth, why we're doing it, and if we want to do it. And this is the time to course correct. We've heard a lot about people pivoting and shifting, but that is so. This is true. This is the time to do it and really to get back to what's in your heart so that you can leave legacy, but also so that you can be excited and happy about your own life, because there's something to be said about that as well.
Well, that's a powerful piece right there too, because so many people are, what you said was we had time to stop being so busy, right? Because we were
Hmm.
always on that rat race, on that hamster wheel, moving, 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 moving. And this gave us an
Hmm.
opportunity to actually slow down and actually pay attention to what we're doing. I think that's why we were able to be in the streets for George Floyd, right? When that actually happened, that was a pivotal time. We've had many murders across the nation by police officers, blatant shots in the back and everything else, but we didn't come out in the numbers that we came out. But because they were able to take time, see what's going on, and then make some real decisions about moving forward. The other thing is, as you said, people forget that, they get excited about something, the passion is there, but then they don't understand how to link it to their purpose. And one of the ideas of tag, talent, ability, gift, is to how to put that together, because it is a purpose involved. But then, yes, the profits come. And that's the whole reason why I started this show, because I was saying, hey, when you get your passion aligned, you can profit. Because if the passion is there, the purpose is there, now make some money. And now that's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, so it's time for me now to expand my horizons, expand, what is it called? Expand your territory, right? Increase your territory,
That's
And so
right.
this whole idea of now you have this thing, breathe some more life on that ember,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
fire starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So
Hmm.
this is powerful. Take us into what happened next, because you have a book out there, but it was not just any old book, and it was some other things going on while you were doing the estate planning, and you was working on
Hmm.
this and working on that. You started seeing yourself in other areas, and then something else came to shed light on some other parts that you were interested in or you had a passion for as well. And then, boom, you actually started with this project. So, talk to us about that.
Okay, so let me just go back really quickly, just to say something about the people coming out as it relates to George Floyd, and certainly want to, commiserate with his family. But I also think that we saw a lot of people pouring into the streets because that particular action was so egregious and people were able to see it all around the world. And so, to the black people, and particularly a black woman who was instrumental in putting together the technology that we now use called a cell phone. Thanks be unto God. But that's a conversation for another time. So perhaps you can bring me back to talk about some more of that, how Black women have been very instrumental as creators and innovators. And I come from, a line of entrepreneurial women, particularly my grandmother. You have a picture of your grandfather behind you, but
Yes.
particularly my grandmother. My grandmother was a boss before it was popular for women to be a boss. That's what I
All right,
always say.
you getting into the second half of the show right there. You getting into
Okay.
you dipping into the other part of the show right there. I'm looking forward to talking about this cell phone. I'm talking about the women
Mhm.
and the thing. But
Mhm.
you dipping in. So if you want to go ahead and jump in, go for it, because you got a lot to say about that. And so let's move in there.
Mhm.
Let's go ahead and talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. And so my grandmother was, and I always say this, my grandmother was successful because she had to be. I am successful because I want to be. And what do I mean by that? Things were a lot different for my grandmother. My grandmother had an eighth grade education, and anybody who ever talks to me, whoever interviews me, they are going to hear about my grandmother, Edna Mae Maynard. They are going to hear about her because my grandmother was so instrumental, and so in her influence in my life was so impactful. And she had an eighth grade education, but she ran her dry cleaning business for over 50 years. She and my grandfather migrated from South Carolina to Washington, D.C. And my grandfather, he was a master tailor, and he taught my grandmother how to sew. And so they opened up a dry cleaning business. And my grandmother was an anchor in the community. And so I was able to witness the power of sisterhood. I was able to witness how women help one another and how women support each other, and all of the things surrounding that. And my grandmother was one of those women who was very, very wise. Lots of people in the community came to her for advice. And so for me, it really is about understanding that we have an obligation to execute purpose in our lives. We have an obligation to stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us and to not back down and to not compromise what we believe, not compromise our values and our morals to get ahead, to make profits. But it is something very powerful about your genealogy and where you come from, and really understanding that and connecting the dots on how it shows up in your life in terms of purpose. And so I can certainly connect the dots as it relates to my work with women, watching my grandmother and her sister friends support each other and, build each other up. When one needed something, they all put their resources together to make sure she had it, whether it was clothes for her children. I remember very vividly some of the women, their husbands dying along the way in my childhood, and the women rallying together to make sure that the wife left behind, had enough food for her children. My grandmother, I remember her very vividly, dry cleaning clothes for people in the community who did not have enough money. I remember very vividly when the crack epidemic hit in the late 80s, and how my grandmother was a resource for the people in the community. So, really understanding where you come from really informs how you show up,
You
and
know,
how how you translate in what you do. I was so inspired by when you started the show and you pulled the energy of your grandfather into the show. I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be good. Because when you understand the power of where you come from and the spirit energy that you have available to you, oh yeah, you become a force to be reckoned with.
that's why I was like, wait, let her finish this sentence because it's so powerful. Because you said you drew on the power of the past of your grandmother, whereas for me, the most powerful man that was a positive role model, inspiration, guidance. Even recently, I was in a coaching session with a coaching program that I'm getting certified for, and I gave homage to paid honor to my grandfather, and I keep him right behind me here. But I told her, you know what? I'm gonna need to put him in other spaces and places. And what happened at my daughter's wedding was her mom had a picture of my grandfather that I hadn't had in over 20 something years. She was holding it
Wow.
to give to our daughter. But at the wedding, she decided, she said, Dwayne, I have something for you. And she said, I want to give you this. And it was a picture of my mom with my dad and my oldest sister at the wedding when my dad married my mom, and my grandfather and
Oh,
and
wow.
his wife are standing there. And it was so powerful. So thank you for,
Yeah.
One Smiles to the Door said it's powerful when we call upon ancestors' names into the room, especially those who helped to shape us as people, right? I love this.
Absolutely.
And you said, hey, my grandmother was successful because she had to be, and then you knew that you were going to be the successful as a choice based on what she gave you the opportunity to do so. So this is awesome. And talking about the women, you have something behind you. So I might as well go ahead and let the cat out the bag. Let the bag out the cat. Let the cat run around with the bag or whatever we got to do with the cat in the bag, because the cat in the bag do things. But it's show up great.
Hmm.
Take us into that. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so show up great is my mantra in life, my hashtag, and it's trademarked, and all of those good things that need to take place when you have an idea. That's intellectual property. I just gave you some free legal advice.
I receive,
Well,
Dr. Nicole S. Mason. I receive.
okay. Yeah, because people will latch on and then they start using it. You have to let folk know, no, no, it's trademarked, so you can politely delete that post. Thank you. And so it's so great. My mom used to always say to me, Nicole, it's not about what you have on, it's about how you show up. Now, many people who are watching us and who will look at the replay, sometimes the lessons and the themes and the, quotes and the messages that, your loved ones said to you, they really don't take flight in your life and in your heart until those people are no longer here. And I know I can pass the proverbial mic around and I can get an amen from everybody that's listening. You can remember something that your grandmother said to you that you really did not understand at the time, but certainly as you grew older, and then once your grandmother passed away, it's like something happens in our spirit energy, and I just believe that that is the power of the spiritual connection. That some of these things come alive. Now I have to watch myself because I feel this, so I'll go into a preached word in a minute. So let me pull myself back because I felt that myself when I said it. And so sometimes I believe that it is a spiritual connection between us and our loved ones. And so, when my mom passed away, I was in a coaching program as well, and, really working on my brand. And I remember thinking about it, and I said, my mom used to always say, it's not about what you have on, it's about how you show up. And, what she was conveying was, show up great. Show up in your greatness. Show up in your power. My mom was one of those people, she literally poured herself into me. That's the way I describe it. All that she was not and could not attain, she poured it into me, and I have done it. And so my mom would encourage me that every place that I was and every place that I would end up, I was supposed to be there. I am supposed to be there. And so when I go into a room, I never shrink back. I'm always stepping up to the plate, if you will, because I know that there were people who died so that I can be in that room. So I'm not going to sit around on the sideline. I'm going to sit at the table. And it's amazing. You have to lead by example. And so, even in the place that I find myself as a senior manager, I have been instrumental in helping the other women to sit at the table. And I will call them to the table if there's a seat and they're sitting on the periphery. Like, no, sit at the table. And so it is important for us to, and Show Up Great has a couple of tenets that I live by, and I call it A plus the 3 power C's. So A is authenticity. Be your authentic self. Okay. No one wants to follow a carbon copy if they really, really have their wits about them. People are attracted to authenticity. And you'll hear people say, wow, she's just authentic, or, what you see with him is what you get. So it's authenticity. And then the first C is confidence. I believe that confidence is the key to success in every area. And so being confident about who you are, what you bring to the table, and then the next C is competence. You have to know your stuff, period, point blank, exclamation point. You got to know your stuff. And so if you've got to go train yourself for something, don't wait for your employee to train you. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, they not sending me to training. No, send yourself to training. Take yourself to training, right? Because when you educate yourself about the area that you're in, no one can take that from you. And so you have a responsibility, again, to be your best self, to be the best version of yourself. And then the last C, I believe that when you have confidence and competence, that courage is the byproduct of those, right? It takes courage to be great. It takes courage to go after your purpose, because not everyone is going to support you. Not everyone is going to be in your corner cheering you on. But you've got to have courage to step out into the deep, if you will. I feel a preach coming on. Let me slow myself down. You have to have courage to be who God has called you to be. Let me slow myself down because I'll get to going. Yeah, so for me, showing up great is an obligation that I have to the ancestors that have gone before me. all of their sweat, blood, tears, and all of the atrocities that they had to overcome. It is important for me and you to rise to the occasion, to be all that God has created us to be. Listen, Coach Dwayne, I want every blessing that is assigned to my bloodline. Hey, yes,
Ooh.
God.
That's bigger than
Every
just you, right? That's bigger than y'all. So listen, y'all gotta hold on to this right here, cause she's taking off already. She already took off. All right, I'm getting out the way. I'm letting her talk. But here's the thing. She talked about that authenticity. She talked about that confidence. She talked about this competence and this courage. And so when you have those things, those are tools for your toolbox, and it's also protection for your heart, right? Because you have this opportunity to move forward with your passion and your purpose. So continue on. Go ahead and preach, girl. Preach.
No, and I thank you just for the latitude just to share. But I think it's important to really know and understand, again, that we have an obligation to be the best versions of ourselves. And, I want to loop this back to our initial conversation, Coach Dwayne, about estate planning. It really is important to honor what you've been given, what you've been afforded the opportunity to acquire. And I want to just say, because I've heard so many times, people in our community talking about what they don't have. But let me tell you, value is what you put on a thing, right? Value is what you give it, not what other people give it, but what you give it. And so I have things around my home, just as I'm sure that you do, that were left from my grandmother, my grandfather, and they may not have any value to others, but they have value to me. And so it is important for me to document where I want these items to go, who I want these items to go to. And that's what an estate plan is all about. You really have to sit down, take inventory of what you have, and the things that you can pass down to your children, that come from your ancestors. It is important for us to do that. It is important for us to have life insurance. Listen, life insurance is not for the living or for the dead. I'm sorry. Life insurance is for the living. Life insurance is so that your family members can maintain their level and standard of living when you're gone. That is the purpose of life insurance. But if you don't have any, then your family is left trying to figure things out. I can go very biblical with this as well. Thinking about the woman whose husband passed away and they were coming to take her children because he had debts that he did not pay. Then the prophet showed up and told her to go in there and get all these jars, and the oil began to flow. And I want to say to you that you have oil on the inside of you, and the oil is your purpose. And when you begin to operate in your purpose, the oil never stops flowing. And so it is important for you to write down what you have, where you want it to go, get life insurance, have an advance directive that is about your health, what you want to happen. Do you want to be on any artificial treatments, feeding tube? Do you want to be resuscitated? All of these things. And let me just say here, I know that these are difficult conversations to have, but you must have them. It's important for you to plan in advance. Let me tell you, it costs to die. There are two different price schedules. When you go, for example, to the cemetery to purchase a plot, there is what they call an at-need price list, and there is what they call a pre-planning price list. Trust me when I tell you, they are very different. And so there's something to be said about pre-planning. And so you want to be sure that that is also a part of doing justice to your legacy, planning appropriately. So
This is
I'll stop there,
powerful.
Coach Dwayne. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I gotta go there a little bit because we've seen a lot of families lose loved ones in this
Mhm.
last year without
Yeah.
notice based on, I mean, they couldn't even touch them, right? They couldn't touch them.
Mhm.
So this
Mhm.
this message again, I had Miss Beverly Thomas on because she actually talked about these type of things as well, and I brought her on a special like a special assignment. She came in first like this, but because it was so powerful for what she was saying about that, I brought her into a special session and we held it on a Thursday night. And then, to talk about this because, again, when you talk about the black and brown community, unfortunately, there's been this stigma about what that means, right? Even in my family, I had one of my siblings say, well, why should I spend my time worrying about what they're going to get once I leave? And I said, well, why not? Because look how many people left in our family and left nothing prepared. There was one or two that had
Mhm.
insurance. The other ones that didn't had to deal with what you just said, where the family had to come together and scrape the money and all this kind of stuff. Now, I've been blessed. My dad, he was a veteran, so when he left here, he had some of that together. I'm a veteran. I have some of that together. My uncle had some of that together. But when I think about what would have happened had they not had it, it's probably been a really rough time still, today because of what happened. So talk to us about this idea of, you know, it costs to die. People don't usually talk about death, especially in our community
Mhm.
because we've been so traumatized with death, right? We're watching
Mhm.
people get shot up all the time. We're watching all this stuff
Mhm.
around us, and
Mhm.
we tend to be
Mhm.
the ones that we see the most when
Mhm.
death occurs, right? Even in the newspaper. So let's talk about what you're doing, and then maybe you can bring that around to this other voice that you started bringing to the forefront when it comes to men
Mhm.
being responsible for their
Mhm.
families. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. And let me just say, the military, they require, their military officers, and they require this. And so, most people who've been in the military, they have their documents in order. And so, good for the United States military people, right? The armed forces. But for me, I just know it's something that is important for us as a people to begin to talk about. And one of the things that is, important is to just begin to have the conversation. And that's what I've been doing over the last year, having the conversation with families about the importance of having your estate plan in place. And I just want to say, for those who, don't take the time to plan appropriately, how selfish of you is that? And that's something that you have to think about. One of the things, and one of the ways that people in other communities have built wealth is by having estate plans in place. So when they pass on, their families are not left starting over again, because that's essentially what is happening when you don't have a plan. When your family has to go and ask other people to help bury you, so when you die, you're really leaving debt because people have to get in debt to bury you. That's selfish. It's wrong. Everything about it is wrong. And so we have been left generationally, to some extent, starting over. And that's not true for all of the people in our community. I can speak for my own family, but there have been so many more of us who have to start over, and it's a travesty. And until we start to think differently, that's a whole nother show. Till we start to think differently, we will continue to say, the kinds of statements that, your family member said to you. And trust me, it's not unique to your family. I've had similar kinds of conversations. People just don't see the value there again. Value is what you put to it. People don't see the value in preparing because they feel like, oh, if I start talking about this, then I'm going to die. All of these things that are just is short sighted, for lack of a better way. It's short sighted. And so it really is important for us to begin to have the conversation about why we need to plan and what happens when we do not. And we've seen that, and I think it's been a travesty on the highest levels when you have people like Aretha Franklin, people like Chadwick Boseman, people like Prince, who just neglected to do what needed to be done with all that they had acquired. I felt, with all of those, I just felt so shame, as an African American, like, come on,
Yeah,
and
we,
those
the thing about that is we heard that years back. We've heard it over and over and over, right? In our current, I would say, in our community, this has been a conversation that's consistent with the people that we see as celebrities and in high places and etc. And it's interesting to me because I remember this is going way back, and you probably I don't know how many people know about Sammy Davis Jr.
Hmm.
because when he passed away, there was this huge fight about
Mhm.
what to do because he had no plan.
Mm.
And he was indigent at the time because in order for them to even do what they needed to do, someone had to take something that he had, sell it, and that's interesting that that would even happen for someone that's a icon in our in our world of the
Mhm.
past, Sammy Davis Jr. So when you say it's shameful or it felt like wow, how could we let that happen? Then you think about your own family. And for me,
Mhm.
I just had this conversation even driving to the studio. Dwayne, you should focus on you and
Mhm.
your what you have, and then focus on your family. Because I've been trying to move this conversation to a family legacy project, and
Mhm.
it's really been difficult to see people not really like jump in and want to do it has been difficult for me because we've seen so many people. I am now one of two uncle, three total, right? But I'm the uncle that's present because the other two don't
Mhm.
always show up at all the family functions and come to the
Mhm.
different things and stuff like that. Now, one wants to, and hopefully he'll be doing that more. That's my younger brother, and another one has
Mhm.
just chose to not be there present. And then
Mhm.
the sisters, we've watched all of our sisters. My sister was 55 when she left here. I'm
Wow.
50. I'm 58 this summer. So
Mhm.
looking at these lives just kind of buzz off and not
Mhm.
having anything left to even like secure their grandkids and things like this. And so it's forced me to actually look into that deeper. So talk
Mhm.
about this idea because we have about 15 more minutes, and
Mhm.
you know, once you discovered your purpose, once you discovered your passion, you started putting it to work in
Mhm.
this area of show up great. And then you also wanted to make sure people were not just inspired, but educated about this area of law. Can you talk to us about maybe one or two things that kind of really got under your skin and made you really say, you know what, we need to do better? And these are two areas that I just know we could start with. Because you said start the conversation. What do we start the conversation with?
Well, I think really for me, it's personal. Like I said earlier in the conversation here, I feel like this area of law really chose me. Um, I was looking around and I was seeing that the seniors in my home church, they needed assistance with preparing wills, etc. And, I just started looking around, and this really is a point of note that you really can find out what is needed just by observing. They talk about when you start a business, you find out what is the pain point and you create your business around it. And so it is for me as it relates to law. I looked around and let me tell you, coming up, like I said, I loved Perry Mason. I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer, right? That's what
Yeah,
I
yeah. You're
wanted to
like,
do.
why did you take those cookies off the shelf? I want to know right now.
Right. But, realizing and understanding that, if I went that route, there would be some things that I may have to deal with that I really did not want to deal with. I wasn't sure how I would be able to handle somebody who was charged with abusing a child or a pedophile, and you know, knowing that my heart could not withstand that. So when I really looked at it, I'm like, I don't think I want to do that. And so really thinking about, where I could be useful and what I could withstand. But it turns out that my heart was much stronger than I gave my own self credit for. And this is a point for all of your listeners, that you really don't know what you can take until you're in the situation. Because, losing my mother and my grandmother in the same month, the same year, 8.5 months pregnant at the time, I realized that I was stronger than I had given myself credit for. And I owe all of that to God, all of that to my faith. And so, thus, the estate planning came into fruition. So that's that. And then for me, as it relates to purpose, I love to preach. I'm sure, as you can hear, and it does not take much for me to do that. I will go into a preach the word in a heartbeat because it's in me. That's what I know I was birthed to do. I love to do it. I feel most alive when I am doing it. And so I take all of that and I write as well. And so I most recently started out on a new kind of project, and that is working with men, because I know I've been called to empower women and to help them to show up great. But God also had another plan. I had a good friend of mine to recommend, sister, why don't you do a men's book anthology, which I had never thought about, but it came about because I was having an interest call for my second book project with women, and a man was on the line. And I'm like, what is going on here? And so when I mentioned it to one of my close sister friends, she said, "Why don't you just do one for men?" She said, I don't think it's ever been done with all African American men." And I said, "You know what? Okay," that resonated deeply with me. And so I started out with this project. I've coached the men for a year now, and we are nearing launch in a couple of weeks, and I'm really excited about it. 10 African American Christian men coming together to share a portion of their story very vulnerably, transparently, and very powerfully. And so I'm really excited about this. And we've been doing Facebook Lives on Tuesdays, talking about the men, they're sharing their truth. And so, really excited about that. So, I didn't see myself doing this.
Well,
Trust me.
here's a funny thing because we have what's called Men of Power. I've been working with Erica Ward. She's on my group. If you check out Erica Ward, connect with her because she has a women's group, Divine Concept Group. And I've been working with her since we both worked for the state and we were all laid
Mhm,
off years ago from the Virginia school when it closed, when Tim Kaine was in office. He closed it with a
mhm,
strike of a pen because of a budget cut, right? And
mm,
when he did that, he put us all unemployed and put us out on a limb. But we stayed connected through this idea that she had for Divine Concept Group, and it morphed just like you did. She was really pouring into the women, but then there's one day she was like, "Well, Dwayne, can we do something with the men?" So I was like one of the people that said, "Sure, I'll be a moderator and I'll
mm,
moderate the conversation and let's talk about boys to men. Let's talk about where's that." Place where men could actually go and cry, right? And be vulnerable and open their skin and share.
mhm,
And so we started doing that. So I applaud what you're doing in reference to the Faithful Fiery Trials because that book, having an anthology of men's stories, and I actually teach a course called Write Your Story course, which is part of it,
mm,
which is self-publishing by taking your story and seeing how you can take it as a transformational fiction, nonfiction story, and use the
mhm,
power of the story to move other people into their lives and also benefit your life. And so this
Yeah.
is really, really key. And I really like that and this is what actually drew us together. So everything
Hmm.
that you talked about, we came to this place based on how we connected, which was your book that you're putting together, that you're about to launch with these men on real, raw, and relatable stories. Let's
Hmm.
talk about it. Tell us what's going on in that space.
Well, let me tell you, the men are speaking their truth. And so, we have stories from, losing children, to overcoming drug addiction, to overcoming pornography, to being a teenage dad and, traveling through the child support system, overcoming a sickness and illness. And I mean, everything in between, these men are talking about. And it is just powerful. And, really, to be truthful with you, Coach Dwayne, I don't really think it's set in yet. The the assignment that God has given me related to this. And, my heart really is overwhelmed with it because it's already had such a tremendous feedback from people. And I really am in awe of God. And I'm just heart is overwhelmed
Well,
that
well,
God would choose me to do this.
let me say this because see, you use a word that we don't hear a lot from men, especially in the African American community. And so this idea of authenticity, because
Mhm.
we're taught to front, we're taught to put on airs, we're taught to walk as if, as opposed to who you really are.
Mhm.
We're also taught that I think it's a false confidence because
Mhm.
we use our looks, our money, our prestige to get what we want versus who we really are.
Yeah.
And then this idea that you have in reference to not just competence and confidence, but putting those three things together, you know. And you
Mhm.
mentioned something earlier, which I want to bring back to, because you talked about the fragments. When the lady was looking for help, he was like, gather up the fragment, gather up those little things, right? So she put all that stuff together for the oil. She had to go and borrow some pots to say, wait, what we're going to do with this oil, right? Because the prophet came and said, look, what do you have in your hand? And she was like, I don't have nothing. He said, what do you have in your house? And she said, well, I got this oil. He said, go, let's get that. So he took what she had, a little bit, and so it's really powerful what you just said because now I'm going to preach to you a little bit because the fact is, as you put this into the earth, we need young men, especially in the black and brown communities, who are getting shot with their hands up, right? Who are getting murdered, running away from the police officer, who's all been unarmed, right? We need people to know how to not be in those places and spaces that even creates those moments. And it's going to come from the voices of our other men in the community who are willing to step up and say, yeah, I was down and out. I don't know what to do. Or they were in a space where, hey, this happened to me for real, molestations, abuse, you know what I mean? I know that from one authentic place that I could speak from is abuse from a foster care parent because me and my brother were abused by a foster care parent. A lot of my friends didn't even know it because when we got moved into my aunt's family, we all became just one big family. And I was like, this is my sister, this is my brother. But the reality was that wasn't my family. This was my secondary family, but it became my family, you see? So when you talk about
Mhm.
raw, we got to get raw because that's how you can stay real. And then you have to tell the
Yeah.
story in a way that's relatable where people can get it. Because
Mhm.
sometimes I could say something and then my younger sibling or my older whoever, it all comes differently to my sons. I have a son
Yeah.
as young as 21, and then I have my middle son, and then I have my oldest son, and 30 years old. That's a big gap right there between 30 and 21.
Mhm.
But the reality of how they have to
Mhm.
live in this earth is the same. because they're African American males. So I love the fact that you're having this conversation with men, and you're having them really get to the core of who we are in the community, so we can empower our communities. We can come back to our communities. I'm gonna say this last thing because I remember this drawing, and it was the African male from, it was like a drawing from slavery, and the woman was holding her ripped clothes. There was a white slave owner off to the side with his whip, and then there was the black male who couldn't do jack. He couldn't do anything for her, but except for if he did anything, he's gonna die. That was basically it. So it was this whole idea, and the caption was, when can we stand up in our own power? Because of where we live in America. So this is a real powerful place for you to talk about standing in their own truth, walking in their authenticity, being powerful enough to share their voice so that it builds up and brings people to a better place. And let's get out of this whole, deadbeat dad, because we've been labeled with everything negative, right? Black, big and black, and he's powerful. Dr. Cress Welsing talks about that. What do? You sink the black ball, you sink the eight ball. The black ball on the table is the worst.
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff. These are
Yeah.
images
Yeah. Yeah.
versus reality. So
Yeah.
take us out. We got 5 minutes. Go for it.
Woo, I'm telling you, powerful. And as you were just talking, I said, Lord, don't let me just burst into tears, into an ugly cry. Because, that really is a part of the vision behind this book, to do exactly what you're talking about. And, I have great vision around pushing this project forward. And, I'm like, okay, you're going to have to be involved too, Coach Dwayne, share your story in volume two. But, I have all bases covered. This is what I'm thinking about. So, we can lift up the men in the community through the written word, and per adventure, the men. I have a whole vision about sending this project into prisons and rehabilitation centers, all that. And per adventure, the men don't know how to read. Guess what? We're gonna come right back and hit it real hard with a documentary about the men, where the men can speak directly to the men. And so I'm just thankful to God for the vision. I'm thankful to God that the men who have started, they trusted me with their hearts, with their stories, and I pushed them. So my whole writing program comes with coaching, and I push them. I would not just let them be surface. No, you got to go deeper. You got to go deeper. And so, in a powerful experience on both ends for them and for me. And so I'm really excited about it. And I thank you for the opportunity to share all of what is going on. And, just pray that your listeners will take action as it relates to their own lives, not just with their estate planning, but tell your story, you know.
Yeah,
So thank you so much for this awesome and amazing opportunity.
no problem. I want this to resonate all across the world, right? There's people like you who are in the trenches doing the work, and
Mhm.
it's time out for just talking about it. It's time for us to put a plan together, estate plan, right? Estate plan,
Mhm.
a state of mind plan, a state, a state of being plan, estate, estate, right? It's interesting. I was just in Baltimore. We were walking around. I was with I was with Dr. Dr. Sabrina, right? We're walking and we're looking on the ground, and they had these what is it called again? It's with a word. Oh gosh, I always get caught up in this. But it said like B and B, right? B E E B E. Uh, um, So here you are, you're talking about estate planning, but look at the vastness of estate. And so I want to say thank you, Dr.
Mhm.
Nicole Mason, for taking my call, for
Mhm.
responding to my request or message, because it led us to this place in this space right here, right?
Amen.
I want to help in any way that I can. I work with foster care as well. I'm on the board of Foster Care Shines. Shout out to P.
Mhm.
Irene Jones for
Mhm.
putting that together. I do a Yes
Mhm.
Summit, which is called Youth Empowerment Success System, where I help
Mhm.
with young people understanding empowerment, employment, education, and
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. And then
Mhm.
also working in the prisons with Impress program, right? Inmate pre-release um, uh, success system. And so I offer all of that to you to help you with your vision as you move forward. So whatever you need that I
Mhm.
could assist you with, please reach
Mhm.
back, and whatever, I can do to assist you in that. I want to say thank you for being with us today. Thank you for riding with us today. There were
Thank
people
you.
that were really excited in the chat about what you were saying. That's good, Wayne. The state. Okay, so P. Irene is out there listening. That's pretty
Mhm.
cool. She's, like I said, the CEO of Foster Care Shines. But listen,
Mhm.
let's do it. Dr. Nicole S. Mason, Esquire, here today. I said she was extraordinary, extraordinaire. That's why I put it out there. But
Thank
hey, you know
you.
what she does? She helps you with that estate planning. So we'll see you. How do they get in touch with you real quick? Wrap us up. Give us your website or what have you, the phone
Sure.
number, and let's
Mhm.
go ahead and exit on out for tonight.
Okay. So it's masonlegalgroup.com. Masonlegalgroup.com. And there's a contact page there. And the number is 240-343-4742. 240-343-4742. masonlegalgroup.com. Or
All right, I'm getting to masonlegalgroup.com, and now let's give
Mhm.
me that number one more time.
Sure, it's 240-343-4742.
There we go.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah,
number, y'all. masonlegalgroup.com. The number 240-343-4742, correct?
correct. That's
There we
correct.
go. There it is
Inbox
right there for
me,
y'all.
right? Yeah, they can just inbox me on Facebook, follow me across social media, Nicole S. Mason ESQ. Thank you all so much.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Coach Dwayne. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
It's been an amazing ride. Thank you so much. I look forward to whatever you got going on out there. When you're ready, to share it again, come on back and talk to us. All right.
I will.
We got
Thank
plenty of
you.
room still on the calendar. All right. Good
Yes.
seeing you. All right. She's going to go in the green room. I got a couple of things to say to y'all. I just want to say, I told you it was going to be good. I told you it was going to be powerful. I told you it was going to have a lot of juice. I told you it was going to be that information you need for your life to be better. All right. This is it. Discover your tag, your talent, your ability, your gift, put it to work in the earth. And look what it did. She had her passion aligned with her purpose, and now she's birthing all types of opportunities, and not just for herself and her family, but for you and your family. So I want to say thank you to you for riding with us. And again, as always, I'll see you on the next page, the next post, the next YouTube video, or the next live. See y'all next week, Saturday, 7 to 8 p.m. All right, I got another guest coming to you live, brand new. Look forward to seeing you.